take one of Marvel should fucking end. Oh, hey, what's up? You caught me at a very opportune time right now. Why was I playing that sick-ass riff about the end of the world? Well, because it feels like film has been slowly dying over the past decade. We got a new year of new potential worth of films. Plenty of stuff that's coming out that I'm pretty excited for, but nothing signals the current state of film, especially in 2026, like the upcoming, partially anticipated Avengers Doomsday. I say partially, ironically. I'm very excited for the film, especially because a lot of it is wrapped in mystery still. Despite whatever AI crap video you watch on YouTube, or whatever 100 leaks you find on Reddit, most people don't know what this film really is about. You have context clues from everything that's come out since the Endgame era, as well as the whole fiasco with Jonathan Majors and the kind of abandonment of Kang. And of course, Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Dr. Doom instead of Tony Stark. But aside from that, don't really know what the film is. I guess it has something to do with incursions and X-Men and Fantastic Four, and I think the Avengers are in the film. But I don't really know what happens. I only know how it feels so far. And it feels like Marvel's trying to get back into the rhythm of what made them special in the first place. I've loved a lot of the trailers that have come out so far, especially the Thor one, and especially this shit right here. And yeah, of course it's a hesitant excitement on my end, and probably the ends of many other people, because Marvel's been very hit or miss lately. 2025 wasn't a terrible year for them, but it probably averaged out to being okay. We had some pretty great films, I thought, and some stuff that wasn't as great, but wasn't terrible. And it seems like they've really been trying to course correct in terms of the quality of their work. And with a move such as bringing back Robert Downey Jr. as a different character, seeming like a very cynical approach to trying to gain some credibility back, it is a really interesting piece of casting regardless, because we all agree that Robert Downey Jr. has the chops to play the character. We all know he's gonna knock it out of the park. But still, like, why would they do what? You can feel my skepticism coming off the screen of your phone, I'm sure. The point is, I'm excited for the film. In terms of big blockbusters, it's probably the most intriguing out of any of them, and that does include Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I'm sure The Odyssey is going to be a much better, much more cinematic experience than Avengers Doomsday, but I'm not as curious about how that's going to turn out as something like Doomsday. Aside from being a crazy nostalgia trip, it's still somehow wrapped up in mystique. That wasn't an intentional pun, but it was there. I trust the Russo brothers, and I think they're gonna make something special. At least that's the vibe I'm getting so far. But the video today isn't really about Avengers Doomsday, or even Avengers Secret Wars. It's about the state of Marvel versus the future state of Marvel. Of course, Marvel's not gonna end after Avengers Secret Wars. Secret Wars is probably gonna act as a soft reboot, sure. I don't imagine it being the end of the book. It's gonna be the end of the multiverse saga, and Kevin Feige's already talked about the next bunch of phases as the mutant saga, and that's fine and everything, but I, like many, feel that Marvel's kind of run out of gas. Again, I'm excited for Avengers Doomsday, but I feel like I need a fresh start in terms of Marvel. It's almost been 20 years since Iron Man 1 came out. That's insanity. And back when it did come out, it was a fresh start. It was a whole other kind of film, separating itself from movies like Spider-Man or X-Men or Blade. And a beautiful story came from it. The Infinity Saga, where the trajectory was pretty clear, at least from the first Avengers film, of the Avengers going up against Thanos, and great stories being set up and paid off in between. But for obvious reasons, that hasn't been the case with the multiverse saga. And now it just feels muddled, and that they're making up for lost time, and even a lot of the stuff that came out last year felt like runoff from the aimless direction of Marvel. Personally, I don't get how Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Daredevil Born Again, Ironheart, and Thunderbolts are part of the same saga. So if there's anything that's a positive in terms of the reboot of the post-Secret Wars era, it's that we could have a very clean slate. For all the years that I said that DC should ape off of Marvel and just kind of do what they were doing. I can't believe I'm saying the same thing, but about Marvel in regards to DC. DC, whether you hate or love what James Gunn has been doing, clearly has a trajectory to it. And everything is a part of that trajectory. And sure, there's some runoff from the DCEU, such as Peacemaker and the Suicide Squad. But when you watch Superman, you totally get that this is a new universe that seems to be more in line with the ideals and variety of the comic books. And that's what I've been hoping for from Marvel since Endgame. Because even though there have been great films and shows from the post-Endgame era, the direction has been kind of all over the place. So what this video was really about is what I would love to see after Secret Wars. And I'm gonna get a little creative with it. Not everyone's gonna agree with it. I think it would be cool to do it this way, but let me know what you think. And like, share, and subscribe and all that crap. I've had a couple ideas of what Marvel should be after Secret Wars, because Marvel at its best were a series of films that were really great intros to characters and showed different sides of this universe that were ultimately leading to the big crossover events. And the Marvel Cinematic Universe has always had to be an interpretation of Marvel Comics, seeing as they didn't have access at the very beginning to characters like the X-Men, Fantastic Four, and Spider-Man, who are staples of this universe. But that's not the case anymore. They have the X-Men, they have the Fantastic Four, they have access to Spider-Man. So that potential in a new continuity is really exciting. I would hope, ideally, that after Secret Wars, they just completely start over. Because really, even though I love a lot of the MCU, who wants to go through 20 years worth of content and a lot of it not being the best or even connected to the main arc just to get to a reboot? No, just start over completely. I would want Marvel Studios to take at least 5 to 7 years before producing anything. And as a fan of the comic book genre, I would be okay waiting for the next Marvel film or show until like the mid-2030s. Oh my God, did I just say that? Oh God. What the hell am I asking for here? But seriously, I'm totally fine with them just taking a back seat. Within that time period, DC could reestablish, given all the films are good, reestablish credibility to this genre. What is the #1 thing people say regarding superhero films? Ugh, another one? You don't want to oversaturate the market, because in doing that, you make the content less valuable. And when it's less valuable, quality is not a sure thing. DC ascending, bringing us films like Brave and the Bold, a Wonder Woman film, more Superman films that are really good, could help rehabilitate the genre, rather than Marvel putting out more shows that mean nothing, more movies that mean nothing, and burying it. So yeah, a 5 to 7 year wait time, I am totally on board with. And this is where it gets kind of controversial. I don't know if people will disagree, or if probability will say this can't happen, or if practicality gets in the way of this, but bear with me. What I would hope for when it comes to the Marvel Universe, the new Marvel Universe, clean slate, I would hope for something that represents the comics in the best way that it can, where these characters feel like the characters rather than interpretations of the characters. That's why I love what James Gunn did with Superman, because within the first minutes of that film, it felt like the character. It felt like Superman from the comics, from the animated series, from the Justice League cartoons. I would want the same treatment for Marvel, rather than this is our version of Spider-Man, this is our version of X-Men. I just want the characters that I grew up with, which is why I think it would be really interesting. It would set the brand apart. It would set the films apart from the competition being DC. If the new universe started with a Fantastic Four film set in the 60s, make each film a period piece. And as the years go on, as the universe continues, you go through the eras that Marvel Comics really did. And you can adapt these stories that were introduced in the comics properly and appropriately, rather than having to shoehorn them in films that have nothing to do with whatever it is that they're adapting. The only situation within this idea that I think is appropriate in terms of bringing old actors into this new universe would be the Fantastic Four, because their film was set in a neo-60s kind of environment. And whether or not you loved the film or hated the film, it captured a lot of the spirit, the futurism, the heart that those original comics by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko had. You could start with a Fantastic Four film that is set in that era, the universe is reset, then you follow up with a Spider-Man story, and it's set back during that time. There's a really great comic by Chip Zdarsky called Spider-Man Life Story, where it starts in the 60s and each issue is a different decade in Peter Parker's life. I think that treatment, not only would it be really interesting visually, character-wise, it could be very relevant. We could see these stories with these characters that we know during these eras and realize how different the eras are to contemporary times and how they aren't very different in regards to contemporary times. An X-Men film set in the 60s, one set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe set in the 60s, properly where it's the real first class of mutants, would be so perfect because that was the civil rights era. That's what the X-Men are all about. We need those drastic reminders, especially in the current day and age that we live in. We need to see these characters directly face these moments in history so that we have something visually to see within contemporary times to remind us not to repeat history. Seeing an Avengers film within the 60s where they fight the Hulk, I think would kick ass, and it would differentiate itself enough from what we grew up with in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It would give the current generation and future generations a greater appreciation of the source material that these films came from. And it would honor the legacies of those writers and artists who worked on them so long ago. Also, they would be idealistic. There would be a sweet nature to them being set during a very idealistic, futuristic time. One thing I heard a lot of people say when getting out of Superman 2025 was, I want to try to be a better person. And that's the whole point of these stories. It's to teach and to inspire people. And Marvel, especially the Marvel of then, did that so perfectly, in such a human way, in a very relatable way, in a way that was more relatable than the comics coming out of DC. And in terms of practicality, that's going to be a hard sell for a lot of people, especially since Fantastic Four didn't do great in terms of box office or even streaming. But it's all about how you market it, and it would absolutely help if there were a break in between Secret Wars and the start of the new universe. You could get fresher faces, you can get newer actors. Actors that we had wanted to see as these characters for so long could finally play them. And the fact that it would be so different from everything that we had seen in phases 1 through 6, I think would help kind of repair the brand and interest people. And in terms of budget, making each film a period piece, spacing that out, I would imagine would ensure a focus on quality rather than quantity, which is what the Marvel films became. It became a numbers game rather than an artistic endeavor. I think this is a way to bring back the Marvel that we all miss. The second idea I had in terms of what Marvel should be post-Secret Wars was, I thought it would be really cool if they just made straight up animated films. If Marvel became a Pixar kind of studio, you could literally adapt the comics. And films like Spider-Verse have proved that not only can these be critical successes, they can be successful financially. And the fact that they're animated in different ways, again, the filmmakers would have no choice but to take their time and make sure that the films are good. That's what I'm hoping for, is just good films. I'm sure Avengers Doomsday is gonna be good at the very least, I would hope so. Because again, this shit right here is fire. I don't know, what do you think Marvel should do after Secret Wars? Should they just go away, whimper off, limping into the distance? Or should they try again? Also, do you think you're gonna have kids at that point? That's a weird thing, the mid-2030s. What the hell? Before you guys go, please check out my feature film, Poncho, about a vigilante in East LA who goes about beating up bad guys. We worked really hard on it all of last year. We did some really crazy stuff in it. Please check it out if you want some goated superhero nonsense. My name is Julius. Thank you for watching. Have a good one. Stay safe and goodbye. The 60s.